After releasing a video on the top 10 Dragon Ball GT plot holes, a lot of people got the impression that I was the type of Dragon Ball fan who hated GT, when in all reality I actually enjoy Dragon Ball GT, probably more than I should. It just irritates me that Dragon Ball GT messed up in terms of continuity, in terms of Dragon Ball lore, and in terms of overall storytelling. But everybody knows the downsides to GT, so today I'm going to be giving you guys 10 things that I liked about Dragon Ball GT. One of the best things about Dragon Ball GT is the pacing. If you were to compare Dragon Ball Z's pacing to Dragon Ball GT's pacing, Dragon Ball GT would take the marks every day of the week. The Android 17 saga in Dragon Ball GT took roughly 7 episodes. Now you may argue that Android 17 wasn't that big of a villain and he more or less transitioned the audience into the Shadow Dragon arc, but let's be honest, if Dragon Ball GT had the pacing of Dragon Ball Z, the Super 17 arc easily would have been 10 to 20 episodes. Super Saiyan 4, more specifically Gogeta Super Saiyan 4. I've talked about this before on my channel. I really do like Super Saiyan 4, and not just the design. While I do like the design of Super Saiyan 4, what I like even more is that there is a Super Saiyan transformation that is reminiscent of the Great Ape. The setting of Dragon Ball GT, whether it be in the Shadow Dragon saga, the Baby saga, or even the Black Star Dragon Ball saga, we get an in-depth look of the Dragon Ball universe. We see multiple races, and then jump across to the Baby saga, we get to see the Tuffle's home planet. And I honestly found that pretty interesting. The techniques that were brought up in Dragon Ball GT were pretty good. I'm talking about the Kamehameha times 10, the Big Bang Kamehameha, and the Dragon Fist. Not to mention all the attacks used by the villains, the most notable being Revenge Death Ball used by Baby, but overall I can say that the techniques brought into Dragon Ball GT were a very welcome addition. Moving on to one of my favorite things in Dragon Ball GT, we have the soundtrack. The soundtrack in Dragon Ball GT is probably the soundtrack that gives me the most nostalgia out of all the other soundtracks in Dragon Ball, aside from maybe the opening of the original show. But with that said, Dragon Ball GT's themes are fantastic. They help make the show even more enjoyable than what it was originally. Which for me, even though the show does have some downsides which we're not going to mention in this video, I still think it's a very enjoyable series. Dragon Ball GT introduced very unique character designs. Obviously I'm talking about guys like Baby, Majub, Super 17, the Shadow Dragons, even Super Saiyan 4. You can say what you want about GT, but the designs were very solid, with only one exception, and that would be Cell. That is not Cell, this is Cell. Majub. I do not like how Majub was portrayed in Dragon Ball GT. I hate how he was underutilized. But I love the concept of Majin Buu fusing with the reincarnation of Kid Buu. And honestly, I've said this a million times, I would not be opposed to seeing the same kind of thing happen in Dragon Ball Super, but you need to make certain that you utilize him. A Hero's Legacy, the only Dragon Ball GT movie, and it was kind of hit and miss for me. We get to see what happened to the entire Dragon Ball cast. Even though most of them are dead, I still think it's pretty cool, but the reason I really enjoy this movie is because Goku shows up at the end, and Goku is supposed to be dead, or so we're led to believe. The interactions with Goku and Goku Jr. made this movie for me, and that is why it is one of the reasons I really like GT. Baby, invading the body of Vegeta, manipulating the minds of everybody on Earth, almost killing Goku, having a legitimate reason for wanting to kill Goku, sounds like a fantastic villain to me. The ending. If you're a Dragon Ball fan and you haven't seen the ending to Dragon Ball GT for whatever reason, do yourself a favor and look up the Dragon Ball GT ending right now. It was the best way to end off Dragon Ball as a franchise. It blows Dragon Ball Z's ending way out of the water, and I just hope Dragon Ball Super's ending can even compare to Dragon Ball GT's ending. Dragon Ball GT's ending is just on another level, and it is the best way to end off any long-running series. So that has been 10 things that I like about Dragon Ball GT. If you hate GT, you probably hated this video. If you like GT, for any other reasons, let me know in the comments, and as always, I will see you in the next Dragon Ball Z video.